So, should we start? So, Mukibek, should we start now?
We are on live now.
Yes,
Yep.
please.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mondira Guhonyogi. I'm the Senior Policy Associate in Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition Gain. A very warm welcome to you all to our today's webinar on food security to nutrition security. How should Bangladesh embrace the future? This is a part of Bangladesh Miracle by Innovation Consulting Private Limited to celebrate 50 years of development progress in Bangladesh. And also, this webinar is a part of United Nations Food System Summit 2021, which aim is to ensure healthier, more sustainable, and more equitable food systems for all. And GAIN is a thematic partner of today's webinar. So we also have with us today as the Financial Express, Department of Economics, North South University, Windmill Advertising Limited, Shara Bangla, Colors FM as our event partner, and Empower as our ICT partner. So before we go to the objective of the event or focus on the detail who are the panelists and the detail about the panelists, I would like to request, we have with us here Dr. Rudaba Khandekar, Country Director, GAIN, and we have, excuse me. Pardon, sorry, that's a technical issue. So where I was in is we have Dr. Rudaba Khandekar, Country Director, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, Bangladesh, with us. So I'd like to request Dr. Khandekar to give her welcome speech for us today and welcome and finally formally open the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mondira. Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum to everyone. Respected panelists, keynote speaker, and learned participants, good afternoon. It is our pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar on food security, nutrition security. How should Bangladesh embrace the future? Amazing title and very mind-stimulating as well. So organized by the Innovation Consulting with event partners and the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. We're having this webinar the day after we have heard some of the critical commitments made by the member states and the global leaders at the pre-summit of the UN Food System Summit in Rome on the 5 action tracks, which is ensure safe and nutritious food for all, shift to sustainable consumption patterns, boost nature positive production, advance equitable livelihoods, build resilience to vulnerability, shock, and stress. So it is very important that with these action tracks and commitments, we are having consumption from production to consumption, looking at the health of the planet and the health of human, and having youth voices, gender and environment enshrined and integrated in the whole process. Our esteemed panelists will share with us their valuable insights along with our keynote speaker on the Bangladesh's progress on the policy to transformative thoughts in food security and nutrition on the 100 years of our Father of the Nations birthday, as well as 50th anniversary of the independence of Bangladesh. With this, I'd like to thank you all for joining this webinar and giving us your valuable time. Thank you very much and welcome all with this start. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khandekar, for your brief and interesting speech, and especially focusing on the 5 action track and what we have final outcome from the pre-summit that actually ended yesterday. Now, I would like to request Mr. Rubaiyat Sarwar, Managing Director and Lead Consultant, Innovation Consulting Private Limited, to give his welcome address for us and share his view about today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I thank everyone, all of our panelists for accepting our invitation. I thank everyone who have joined today. with us to listen to this very, very, very important conversation that we're going to have. For me personally, this webinar is one of the most important ones that we are organizing under the series Bangladesh Miracle to celebrate 50 years of Bangladesh. And the reason it is important is because you all know we are currently going through the COVID pandemic. And since 2020,
yeah, his wife and daughter is COVID positive, and he and his son, they are
sorry for interruption. I'd like to request our guest and all to mute yourself so that we can hear the speaker talking to us.
no
Thank you.
problem. So as I was saying, so as you know, I mean, we are in the COVID pandemic situation, and since 2020 April, Innovision has been conducting a lot of investigation on the low-income population about their food access utilization. And we have with us some of our panelists with whom we worked, and they will for sure share with you how deep a cavity we are seeing in terms of low-income populations, nutrition issues. And we know that Bangladesh is a country where vitamin A deficiencies, zinc deficiencies, etc., have been very strong. And also we have the fortification issues that we have been trying to deal with. So there are lots of complexities that are centered around nutrition. But most importantly, the reason why today's webinar is important is because if we cannot address our nutrition challenge that we inherited from before 2020 and the nutrition challenge that is evolving since 2020, then whatever progress that we have reported against extreme poverty is going to have a reversal. Is because in 15 years time, when these children under 5, they come back to the economy, they will not be as productive. And as well, we are going to exclude a lot of women who would be deprived of nutrition and therefore will not be economically active. And also, as the nutrition goes down for the men, it will also have a disproportional impact. So therefore, today's webinar is extremely important for us. And I can see a lot of policymakers from the donors and the practitioners have joined today. And I look forward to having a very fruitful discussion. And just one end note, whatever we're discussing in the Bangladesh Miracle series, we are producing a policy paper for each of the webinar that we are having. You will have access to that policy paper that we'll be disseminating to all of you. And at the end of the year, we're also going to publish a book with the discussions that we have had throughout the Bangladesh Miracle series. This is series 1. And today is the 5th webinar on the series 1. We will soon have series 2 starting from October. So having said that, I welcome you all. Over to you, Mandira.
Thank you, Mr. Rubatsara, for your words, and especially focusing on the challenges and based on which we actually have come together today here. And before we start our main session, as I mentioned earlier, that I want to focus on the objective that already the guest has already have the idea about what is this webinar is all about today. Still, I want to just focus on the very concrete 2 points that that are our main objective of today's webinar. Number 1 is to discover and learn from projects, initiatives, and decisions that have shaped our current national scenario with food security and nutrition security over the past 50 years that Rubat Bhai already mentioned, and how we are going to achieve nutrition security for Bangladesh in the near future from a national perspective, and how to align our plan with the Food System Summit agenda. Dear guests, before we start our keynote presentation, I'd like to introduce you all with our panelist and keynote presenter today. So I'm starting with our panelist name. So we have Dr. S.M. Mustafizur Rahman, Line Director, National Nutrition Service, Institute of Public Health, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. We have Dr. Muhammad Abdul Alim, Member, Bangladesh Food Safety Authority, Ministry of Food, and Professor, Department of Food Technology and Rural Industries, Bangladesh Agricultural University. Mr. Akhil Ranjan Tarofdar, General Manager, Bangladesh Small and Cottage Industries Corporation. Mr. Rezal Karim, Head of Program, World Food Program, Bangladesh. Dr. Anika Tasim Khan, Team Lead, Adolescent Project, Innovation Consulting Private Limited. Mr. Zaki Haidar, Director of Innovation, Empower Social Enterprise Limited. Dr. Sheikh Shahid Rahman, Chief of Party, Shuchona, Save the Children Bangladesh, and Secretary, CSF for Sun. Dr. Ahmed Hussain, Professor, Public Health and Director, Global Health Institute, North South University. And Mr. Eddie Barnett, Managing Director, Care Nutrition Limited, as our panelists today. And we have Mr. Penjani Makambula, Global Cluster Lead, Large-Scale Food Fortification and Bio Fortification, as today's keynote speaker. Before we so I'd like to request again our guests to keep themselves mute. Sorry for this interruption from me. Just we have to have a clear discussion from the speakers, so that I'm requesting to keep yourself mute. And before we start, dear guests, there are a few housekeeping rules I need to mention. That is, please share your question in the, we will have a two panel discussion, and in between two panel discussion and after the second panel discussion, we will not have much time to continue a detailed question answer session. Considering this, we would like our guests to share your question or query in the chat box. And if possible, mention that which panelist you are asking this question to. So our panelists will try their level best to respond to your queries in the chat box. This is one thing. And as Rubaid Bhai already mentioned, that there will be a detailed documentation, the policy paper on all of this webinar. So for the sake of that documentation and detailed reporting, we are recording this webinar. We are recording the entire webinar for a further documentation purpose. And we really hope that you all are okay with this recording thing. Thank you. So now I'd like to request Mr. Penjani Makambula to share his keynote with us. Indeed, it is a great opportunity, I believe, for us to hear from you, Penjani, about the global aspect and Bangladesh's opportunity in food fortification area. Thanks, and over to you, Penjani.
Thank you very much, Mandira, for the introduction, and good afternoon and assalamu alaikum to you all. It's good to be back among several friends and colleagues in Bangladesh, virtually at least. I was last there in March last year. At the time, COVID had just appeared on the scene, and I was quite hopeful that I was going to be back in Bangladesh in a few months. But it has turned out to be a much more challenging year than any one of us would have expected. But I hope you are all keeping well, safe and healthy, and that all your families and loved ones are well, and hopefully in time, humanity will come together collectively and defeat this virus. But coming back to the discussion for today, I was requested to give a high-level overview on where we are at globally with efforts around large-scale food fortification and biofortification, and zero in a little bit on Bangladesh regarding what is happening now and what are the prospects for the future. Bearing in mind 2021 is the year of these two big summits, the Food System Summit and the Nutrition for Growth Summit. So my presentation is going to be focused on that. So the first part of the presentation is just a general background to micronutrient deficiencies, and that's a very high-level background. And globally, what's the current status on biofortification and large-scale food fortification efforts? So to start, what's the issue, what's the challenge that we have at present? So we live in a world where 3 billion people cannot afford a healthy diet. And what do I mean by a healthy diet? I mean, that is a diet that's a balanced diet. So it's got macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbs, but also a diet that's rich in micronutrients. So collectively, there is 3 billion people in the world that cannot afford that. If you look at the map, the countries that are in darker colors and reddish looking colors, you have a high proportion of the population. If they were to use their daily income to buy what's considered a healthy diet, then the proportion of their income is quite, as overall proportion of their food household expenditure is going to be very high. So effectively, what we have is people cannot afford that, and therefore they typically default to diets that are high in staple foods. So, maybe rice, wheat, maize. These are diets that are, high in energy, but very poor sources, for example, of micronutrients, of vitamins and minerals. When we look into the future, it's a worrying situation that we see based on current projections. And this is typically when you take into account the issue of climate change. So if you look at the map on the left, what this shows is that the countries, especially those in red, by 2080, if we take into account the changing climate, so erratic rainfall patterns and the rest of it all, there's going to be a reduction in productivity. So some of those, the productivity is going to reduce by as much as 50%. Whereas the countries in dark green, those will increase their productivity. So collectively, if nothing happens in terms of climate change, the situation around food and availability of food is going to get worse. But that's in 2080. But what we did, some of the modeling in looking at 2050, we're also seeing that the impacts of climate change is having an impact on the availability of nutrients in the staple foods. So, some of the projections that have been done show that, for example, in wheat, by 2050, the amount of zinc is going to reduce by approximately 10%. Whereas if you look at rice, the iron content in there, and that's the naturally occurring one, is going to reduce by about 5% or so. So we need to both address climate change issues, but also what exactly in terms of nutrition interventions to mitigate the impacts of all these issues. So coming back to micronutrients, we know that globally 2 billion people, suffer from micronutrient deficiencies. So that's a lack, a lack of consumption or inadequate consumption of vitamins and minerals, and that leads to various conditions. So we know vitamin A leads to blindness. We know inadequate intakes of iodine can lead to poor brain development. Inadequate intakes of iron can lead to anemia, and various, inadequate intakes of various, micronutrients can lead to weakened immune system. So those are all critical issues to health of populations. Getting the situation closer to home in South Asia, what's the status? This is based on an assessment that was done earlier in the year by the World Food Programme, but we'll come back to the data specifically for Bangladesh based on the most recent micronutrient deficiencies, which will show, some of these figures for Bangladesh are actually higher. So when we look at anemia in children, we see that, at over half of the children were anemic, and that's 2016 data. And when we look at women of reproductive age, approximately 50% of women are anemic in South Asia. Looking at the various deficiencies across children under 5, school-age children and adolescents, and women of reproductive age, and zeroing in on Bangladesh, for example, we see in general, concern around micronutrient deficiencies. So if you look at children under 5, at least half had zinc deficiencies. 20% or so of adolescents, having vitamin A deficiencies, and a very high proportion of women also having, zinc deficiencies in Bangladesh. So what are the strategies that are used to address the issue of micronutrient deficiencies or micronutrient malnutrition, so to speak. There's a whole range of interventions, as we all know, and there is no silver bullet. All these interventions, have to be implemented as an integrated package to address micronutrient deficiencies. But for the purpose of today, we'll focus on those two. That's biofortification and large-scale fortification. But do bear in mind that these are not implemented in isolation, but they're implemented as a part of a package of a wider food systems and health systems intervention. So typically, what do we mean by large-scale food fortification? This is additional of vitamins and minerals to food in processing. It's been around since the 1920s, beginning with standardization both in Switzerland and United States of America. Biofortification is more recent. It's been around since 1990s, and it's basically conventional breeding of crops by selecting crops that are high in naturally occurring micronutrients and breeding those ones, and then putting the breeds on the market for farmers to grow. The programming only started in the 20s, around 2006 and 2010. So it is relatively recent intervention that requires scaling up. In terms of the approaches themselves, these are all the food vehicles that can be biofortified or fortified. Industrial fortification or large-scale food fortification, typically you can fortify one or more micronutrients, whereas for biofortification, we're typically only talking about one micronutrient in a particular crop. So that's a fundamental difference between these two. So where are we at in the world now? So at present, there is at least 87 countries where by law, you have to fortify wheat, maize, or rice. So 87 countries by law, you have to mandate, there is a mandate for fortification of grains. In Bangladesh, of course, both wheat fortification and rice fortification is voluntary. So it's not.
Ranjani, you have been muted, please.
Sorry about that. The most advanced vehicle for fortification, of course, is standardization. So there is at least 145 countries in the world where standardization is practiced. 124 of those are on a mandatory basis. And the most recent statistics, that's in 2019, shows that globally at least 88% of the global population has access to iodized salt. And if you look at the global population as being around 8 or so billion, it means close to 7 billion people in the world consume salt that is iodized in one form or the other. The situation around oil fortification is much less. So there is 38 countries globally where oil is actually fortified either voluntarily or mandatory or as part of a mandatory program. 27 of those, it's mandatory, and Bangladesh is, of course, one of the countries with mandatory fortification of oil. Coming to the issue of biofortification, as I said, this is a relatively recent intervention. So much less countries are doing that at present, but it is growing. So there's 41 countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America that are implementing biofortification programs, and there is 12 staple crops that are being biofortified. So relatively recent, but growing at a fast pace. So what is the situation in Bangladesh, and what are some of the policy issues and the program status and opportunities going forward? So this data so this is the most recent data based on the micronutrient survey that has been done between 2019 and 2020. It's preliminary data that has been released this month. And what that shows is that there is some micronutrients that are of a big concern. So if you look at children, we're looking at vitamin A deficiency, over 50%. We're looking at zinc at 32%, vitamin D at 26%, and iodine deficiency, hovering around 20%. The same thing we're seeing in non-pregnant and non-lactating women. So over 70% have vitamin A deficiencies, 30% deficient in, or 30% are anemic, and over 40% that have zinc deficiencies. So all this to say is that micronutrient deficiencies are still remain a public health concern in Bangladesh. Of course, in terms of the policies, the government in Bangladesh has been dynamic, from the 2015-2024 strategy on the prevention of micronutrient deficiencies to the formulation of the Food and Nutrition Policy 2020 to the 8th five-year investment plan. So all the nice policies and all the good policies are in place. And also the policies cover a whole set of recommended and global good practice on interventions from dietary diversity to fortification, biofortification, and supplementation. So from a policy context, I think all the key ingredients are in place. But we all know that policy is one thing and implementation is another. So what are the challenges that we see in the program in Bangladesh? First and foremost, it is a huge issue to do with compliance. So if we look at oil fortification, for example, the most recent market assessment that was done about 2 or so years ago on oil fortification, it did show that 95% of all the packaged oil, so that is oil in bottles, was actually fortified. But only 40% of oil that's being sold in drums was fortified. But when you look at the overall market in Bangladesh, 70% of the oil that's sold on the Bangladesh market is the one that is in drum, that's sold in loose form, where consumers go and buy. And so that's a critical issue. But beyond the issues around compliance to fortification, these are actually pictures from the market in Bangladesh. Is this oil safe? Is it hygienic? What is it that people are consuming? I mean, this is, the second drum there is an example, which is in the market. It shows it's just come out from some chemical factory, washed, and people use it for selling oil. And if you look at it, it's got a warning around containing corrosive substances. Granted, that material was decanted from it before it was used for oils, but there are all these concerns that we need to look at. The second, of course, is the issue around constraints with resources. Yes, Bangladesh Standards and Testing Institution is doing its best, but the reality is most government agencies have got resource constraints for them to monitor and take care of these issues. There's also coordination among various parties involved. There's a number of ministries and agencies involved in different fortification programs. How can these coordinate better? And in terms of biofortification, it's still relatively a recent intervention. It's mostly grown by smallholder farmers that are growing both biofortified and biofortified crops. How do we scale up, these programs, and how do we ensure that there is, proper traceability between the biofortified and non-biofortified varieties? So looking forward, rather than just talking about the challenges, what are some of the things that we should be considering and that can be done? First and foremost, is looking at the levels of vitamin A, vitamin D deficiency in Bangladesh. It does make sense to amend the law on oil fortification to include vitamin D, because vitamin D is quite stable in oil. So that could be one of the approaches that could be done. But we're also seeing issues to do with, anemia, zinc, and folate deficiency. And those could also be addressed by introducing wheat flour fortification program. Currently, as I said, there's already standards in Bangladesh, so standards are voluntary, and not much is happening on wheat flour fortification. There could be a concerted effort around that. There is rice fortification already that's happening in social safety net programs, and those could be actually scaled up. When it comes to governance, given the fragmentation and the growth of various fortified food vehicles, there is an opportunity to put together a coordination mechanism to coordinate the implementation and sharing across the various programs. And then there's recently a standardization law which has been amended that should be implemented and operationalized to take care of the various issues. And lastly, in terms of strengthening governance systems and monitoring on fortification programs, given the challenges around government capacity and resources to monitor, there are now technologies where governments can monitor remotely through use of digital tools. So that can actually be implemented in Bangladesh, which we know, of course, has got a government flagship initiative on digital Bangladesh. And fourth, we really need to look very closely at the status and quality and safety of oil fortification. Yes, the government is already looking at a policy of phasing out black oils. How do we do that effectively and over what time frame? And how do we make sure that there are alternative, cost-effective packaging that are available for people at the bottom of the pyramid? And finally, there is a huge need to scale up, rice production and commercialization of biofortified rice with zinc. It is there in Bangladesh at present. It's a relatively recent program, but it needs to be scaled up. So in a nutshell, that's what I had to say. And thank you very much for your time and attention. And I hand you over back to Mandira.
Thank you, Panjani, for your excellent presentation. So from that, we got to know from the industrial and biofortification and of course, the Bangladesh scenario, both in terms of the policy intervention and also the further future opportunities where we can work at. So Bangladesh has achieved the self-sufficiency in food production, especially in case of rice. So after this achievement, Government of Bangladesh has stretched its view towards nutritious food consumption. So food fortification is one of the way of ensuring nutrition, which identifies supplementation of one or more components like zinc, vitamin A, vitamin D, iron, etc. So to improve the proportion of newly designed and functional food products. So we have our achievement, we have our possible solution to the existing challenges, but still majority of the population suffers from micronutrient deficiencies, as we got to know, and we already know that. So most of us here are working in the nutrition sector, so we are more or less aware of the scenario I just mentioned. So on this note, my question is for Dr. S.M. Mustafizur Rahman, sir, is that what is the undernourishment situation in Bangladesh and in terms of stunting, wasting and underweight, and how can we address the high prevalence of the vitamin A, zinc, vitamin D and folic acid in a most effective way to reduce malnutrition? And also Panjani has mentioned in his presentation and sharing that there are some wonderful policies and acts already there with that has been developed by the Bangladesh government. So what is the condition of those act and policies and how those are being implemented? So sir, I would like to request you to share some words about that, and would kindly request you to turn your camera on, so and before you start your valuable speech with us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is Dr. S. Mustafizur Rahman. Basically, you have rightly mentioned Bangladesh has developed a lot in different aspects. Basically, we are fighting for the couple of decades. We are for a couple of decades security and other issues, and our main problem was the undernutrition. Now we have developed in a status that we are not that much thoughtful about the food security. It is somehow the carbohydrate is there, and our improvement in cases of the stunting, wasting and undernutrition, it is in a good shape, and through the balanced diet, and we have data diversification, and in some cases fortification and supplementation program is ongoing. And basically over the 2 decades we have other improvement. We have developed in literacy and the life expectancy at birth, sustaining child immunization for long time, over 90%, and sharp decline of the maternal mortality rate. gradually improved the basic health and nutrition services contributed to the substantial reduction of the under 5 mortality. It was 94 death per 1,000 live birth in 1999-2000, which became 31 in 2019, for which Bangladesh received MDG in 2010. Bangladesh made impressive progress in reducing infertility, mortality, and improving health. But in terms of the malnutrition, what I was mentioning, it was a success, but now we want to mention still, though we have improved in the stunting, we have improved in the wasting, we have improved in reducing the undernutrition. If we go to the WHO target, it is not that much satisfactory. We need to go up to that level. If we see the rate of the stunting rate in comparison to the 2000 to the 2019, it was 51, now it is 28, and in cases of the wasting, between 2000 it was 15%, now it is 9.2%, and underweight it was basically 43% in 2004, and it is 22 in 2018. In rate of the stunting, wasting, and underweight to be decreased, to improve the nutrition status and the under 5, as per the WHO I have already mentioned. Food system provide here a good support. Health system, care time allocation, and the wash are also important. And if we can address all these things together, we'll get our desired result. And after getting all these positive things, if we see the comparison between 2011 and 2019 and 20 study, we can see the some of the indicator like vitamin A deficiency among the under 5 has raised. It was a bit less in 2011, but it is increased in 2019, as well as in non-pregnant and non-lactating mother. It was 5.4 in 2011, but now it is an 8.5 in 2020. So it is in bad shape. But on the other hand, if we see the 2011 and 2019, we will find some better result also. For example, zinc, iodine, zinc, and the vitamin D, it was 40% iodine deficiency, 44% zinc, and 45% vitamin D deficiency was prevailed in 2011. But now it is 20.3, 32.5, and 26.1. So some indicator becoming worse, some indicator becoming better. So we have to work in an approach so that we can cover up all our desired things so that we can achieve. Deficiency reduction of the several macronutrient was due to number of the government programs. And among those programs, vitamin supplementation program for children, iron folic supplementation from the pregnant and lactating women. And I have already mentioned about the fortification of the edible oil, universal iodization of the soil, rice fortification, and food safety, rice fortification for our lot of safety net program. However, the current COVID-19 pandemic situation has put a great challenge in supplementation program and barrier in combating macronutrient malnutrition. So this is the overall picture, and we are trying with the Ministry of the Health and Family Welfare as well as other multi-sectoral ministries, those who are working in a body to combat the macronutrient situation like other indicators we want to achieve. Policies are there. It is our nutrition policies 2015, our policies and national plan of action, and a national plan of action, macronutrient strategies, everything are there, and multi-sector approach are there. So we are doing our level best, we are trying, but you see, due to this underemployment or unemployment due to the COVID, it is a challenge not only for Bangladesh, from other countries. So this is from my side. We are just trying. We will keep on trying to handle the situation, and we are trying to achieve our goal of 2025 WHO as well as the SDG of 2030. And we have our other goals for the 2040 and 100 years goal. So thank you, and over.
Thank you, sir. We also believe that we will achieve our targeted goal by 2025 and our given timeline. Thank you so much for your insightful speech. So from you, we got to know about challenges, but also there are some significant development and achievement as well, especially focusing in life expectancy, then decreased maternal mortality rate, malnutrition going downwards, as so are the stunting and wasting. And we have success in the chronic undernutrition scenario as well. So besides that, as you mentioned, and we all know that there are few challenges existing here as well. So there is another challenge we have with this existing one, and that is the adolescent nutrition area. We still have the challenge there. For example, if you focus on the lack of option for healthy food, wrong food choice, lack of awareness, which often leads to obesity, if I want to mention it specifically, as well as other health issues. We have that tendency, we have that scenario from the adolescent nutrition part as well. So in that case, linking with that, I want to know from Dr. Anika Tahsin Khan that what are the emerging challenges of adolescent nutrition and how Innovation Consulting working to address these challenges. Dr. Anika Tahsin Khan, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity to bring out the emerging challenges, as well as how we at Innovision are trying our level best to address these challenges in times of COVID-19 as well. Today, I will try to focus on the emerging challenges, but then thank you so much, Mr. Penjani and Mustafiz sir. They have very nicely elaborated the emerging challenges in Bangladesh, how we are focusing on establishing the vitamin D, anemia, zinc deficiency rate to low. And I will also try to address mainly on the adolescents, since we have asked about adolescent nutrition. As we are all aware of the fact that adolescent is the transitional period between childhood to adulthood. So a lot of physical and mental changes occur between this age. So the calorie need during this age is higher than compared to adulthood. So as we know that Bangladesh is trying to achieve the SDG targets of 2030, and with the present situation of the deficiency situation in Bangladesh, with anemia and micronutrient deficiencies are common in adolescents, since dietary intakes are below requirements, as we have seen from Mr. Penjani's slides. I would like to go on to the challenges, how we are facing the challenges and addressing the challenges. So according to all the findings, we have at Innovision have found out a way of addressing the challenge by going to three approach. That is a holistic approach, a systemic approach, and an innovative approach. A holistic approach will ensure that the interventions address the adolescent and try to empower them socially and culturally, as well as include their families and their communities, including their households. We're going for a systemic approach, as I mentioned earlier. The systemic approach will ensure that these impacts are achieved through public, private, and NGO and community-based agencies that have direct mandate to work with the adolescent girls and boys. And one more important approach is innovative approach. In recent times, as we are getting closer to digital Bangladesh, innovative approach is very important, that this will ensure a fresh and creative approach, unlike conventional methods, which involves utilization of ICT. So Innovision Consulting, together with USAID and APT Associates, have designed a sustainable project which will focus on improving nutrition and WASH practices, and as well as develop capacity of the social and economic empowerment of adolescents in Bangladesh. So the project actually which we are focusing on to address these challenges are, the project aims on the adolescent to become change makers or change agents for gender equality, as well as the adoption of improved nutrition wash behaviors through practices. We have achieved the three approaches by developing three strategies, that is, develop entry points to reach the adolescents. We know that adolescents are the age from 10 to 18 years old, which focuses mainly on the schools. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, the develop forums and entry points to reach the adolescents. We'll be focusing on schools where we can directly reach the adolescent population. So in terms of this, in response to this, we have Innovation Consulting have established as a pilot 30 school-based adolescent clubs. As you know that in March 2020, a guideline was established by the Minister of Education, the Director of Secondary and Higher Education, that how the school-based secondary club will be formed. We have followed that guideline and created, I won't say creative, we have strengthened, we are planning on strengthening those 30 school-based adolescent clubs as a pilot project. Next, what we are doing is introduce activities and tools that can facilitate leadership and empowerment. This will include the normal club activities, which we have followed the guideline, which every Thursday or monthly club day will be conducted by the adolescents, and include in them creative activities that will engage them to get connected with general students as well as the community. Also, we have tried to include activities to increase the visibility of youth leaders in the community and at their households. So by these three objectives, we have actually followed the government guideline and created 30 school-based adolescent clubs, which we term it as Shurjo clubs. Here, as the government guideline, there are 50-50, that is 50% girls, 50% boys, in terms of girls' school, all girls, and in terms of boys' school, all boys. We have focused primarily as pilot project in Faridpur, Khulna, Cox's Bazar, and Potuakhali, where we have already established 30 Shurjo clubs. So the attempt of Shurjo club is as usual, goes by the process that first we have we have got general approval from the head sirs and the SMC members, and then we formed the clubs, including 30 students. Each club will have 30 students in them, ranging from class 6 to 10. This will enable us to create a platform for the students as well as for the teachers to go into the community, to penetrate the rural community. The approach of us in the schools is not only nutrition, but also a 360 approach. This approach will enable us to not only go for nutrition, but include wash, menstrual hygiene, and personal hygiene. It will also include mental health, which we know is a very important priority in times of COVID-19 situation, and the school closures that has affected the mental health of the adolescents, being at home for the past 1.5 years, and also to focus on leadership development of the adolescents. This club actually, the thing we are doing different from the guideline to address these challenges are including some interactive activities. The clubs, Shurjo clubs primarily will have digital kiosks, which is actually a digital interactive platform with a tab. Each school will have 1 to 4 digital kiosks, through which they can connect with schools of the other students of the other schools, as well as they can get more information on nutrition, wash, get the latest update of, get latest studies of nutrition, wash, then menstrual hygiene. This kiosk will enable us to go for the third approach, as I mentioned, that innovative approach. Second approach which we are taking in through clubs are Pushti Mart, the Nutri Garden. We have already established a relationship with the schools to have 30 Pushti Mart, Nutri Garden, which will be adolescent-led. This will actually enable us, not only us, the students, to incorporate themselves in leadership quality, that they will take the leadership and they will grow the vegetables and at school and their homestead gardening. And this will also play a great role in midday meals, which the school can utilize the vegetables that's been grown in Nutri Garden to be utilized during the midday meal of these students. So this approach also has been taken in this 30 Shurjo clubs. Apart from this, we are going to conduct through Shurjo clubs, we are going to conduct every year, there's going to be a nutrition fair, which we will combine with the annual sports day every year. So sports day is physical health as well as nutritional fair will combine, it goes together. So because physical health and nutrition have been going hand in hand, so this nutrition fair every year will be conducted by the students and the schools of the community. Then the next approach which we go to reach the community are community engagement events. These community engagement events are actually the students of the adolescent leaders will be given the responsibility of conducting small 30 to 60 participant community-based events where they will focus on promoting nutrition, wash, and menstrual hygiene, child marriage, and the important related issues relating to adolescent. This will actually enable the students not only giving them the leadership quality, but also reaching the root level community in Bangladesh. These are the few interactive and innovative approach which we have taken through Shurjo Club. But this also, I would like to include that throughout this process, we have received enormous support from the government, from the Directorate of Secondary and Higher Education. We have actually received support through this COVID-19 time, which was a challenging issue for us since the schools are closed and we were facing a big challenge of reaching the adolescents through this time. But since we have received enormous and tremendous support from the DC, with their support, not only from the Dhaka, but also from the district education officers and the Upajili secondary education officers, we were able to communicate with the 30 schools and form Shurjo clubs with them. Now the question comes of engaging the adolescents through them. So before actually forming the Shurjo clubs, we have to go through some process, that is first getting support from the DC and then communicating with the SMCs and the head sirs for their support. The interesting part which we have learned through this process that we have received tremendous support from the government as well. Through this activities, we have also learned that the school authorities are very much open to such initiatives relating to nutrition and wash practices, because there's a very important factor which is now highlights of COVID-19 issues, and the adolescents are, since the adolescents are not being able to come to school, they are trying to get to them through any other media, through any media which we are proposing to them, either maybe through community engagement event or maybe through training or small peer education sessions. Second, we have, after that, we selected the club coordinator teachers. A club coordinator teacher is a teacher who is responsible only for looking after and supervising the Shurjo club. The club coordinators were selected. So if I say, to be precise, on numeric value, that is, we have established 30 Shurjo clubs and have selected 60 club coordinator teachers. That is 2 club coordinator teachers per school involved, per club involved. That is 3 residential training from us, which we have spoken to them about the steps they can take during this COVID times. What's the importance of nutrition, wash practice, menstrual hygiene, child marriage, and how can they make this whole activity engaging for these. I would say that this is a normal process of a Shurjo club or any adolescent-led club, which we have in Bangladesh. But the interesting part in this project, which we are implementing, is creating a sustainable project. A sustainable project is that after all the projects are stopped, the school should self-sustain the clubs by themselves. So in order to achieve this project.
Sorry, Anika, but just interrupting for a while. So we are kind of running out of time. So just a reminder, yeah, thank you.
So in order to make it a sustainable project, we have involved private sector companies in this project, which they will have an agreement with the school. So after the project finishes, the private sector companies along with schools will have an agreement which will have a pathway of making this project a sustainable project. I would not, since the time is rushing out, I would just like to show within 30 seconds some of the activities which we have done so far. Mushfiq bhai, if you can just go through the slides. Yes, so here we have done this project during the COVID-19 time. That is from January, we have started this project where we have you can, Mushfiq Bhai, you can carry on. So here we have gotten the support from the DC, and then we have got support from USCO, DEOs all throughout. Then with the teachers, which we said were trained during this time. And then we have, during the assessment time that students were coming to school for, we have gotten them together in one, under one roof, maintaining the COVID-19 protocol and getting them to have the training, like what are the adolescent leaders, and the students themselves were very much interested. The best part was that the students themselves came up with innovative ideas of creating pictures and doing activities as such. These are quite few the events which we have carried out from January up to June. These are our community engagement events that we created out, and the adolescents themselves did all the activities. They have created an adolescent-led activity all throughout the sessions during January to June. And this is the way of mentioning that we have also created COVID-19 protocol. Mushfiq, if you can you go to the previous slide? Yeah, the previous one. Yes, this one actually I want to focus. No, the next one. Yes, this one I want to actually focus on. This is a peer education session during the COVID times. The adolescent themselves has taken their own lead and conducted peer education sessions in their Uthan or their ground area, where they have conducted from beginning to end all by themselves with a guideline they have received from us. So these are the initiatives we have started, but by 2022, we are aiming to reach 500 Shurjo clubs, that is 500 school-based adolescent clubs in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anika, and I'm extremely sorry for interrupting while you're speaking. So this is excellent presentation with all the information about the adolescent are doing, including the dealing with the COVID-19 as well. So I really hope if we reach innovation for further information, because this time is not enough to know about everything. So I think all our guests, and if we want to know more about it, you will help us. Thank you, Dr. Anika. So as we already know about the challenges, about the achievements, about the current scenario of the country regarding nutrition sector and nutritional standards of the nation. So from last 1.5 years, we are also facing another challenge that has already been mentioned by Dr. Anika, that is the COVID-19 thing. So, it's almost 1.5 years, we are still struggling. The vaccination is going on, obviously, and we are, but the infection rate is still very high. Our regular life, especially people from the marginal, from the backward area of the country, are suffering a lot in terms of economy, in terms of livelihood, in terms of health, in terms of nutrition, and many other aspects. So, keeping that in mind, I'd like to request Dr. Sheikh Shahid Rahman, Chief of Party, Save the Children, to let us know more about what the nutrition-specific and nutrition-sensitive intervention should be immediately undertaken to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 in Bangladesh, considering the suffering people are going through right now, almost the entire nation. So, Dr. Rahman, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I have an apprehension that my network might not support the video all the time. So in case if I switch off my video, would you mind?
Shahid, can I just interrupt for just 10 seconds?
Yes, please.
So by this time, we have queries from our participants for Benjani, for Dr. Mustafizur Rahman sir, and Dr. Anika. So I'd like all our panelists to respond to that chat box while we are listening to Dr. Shahid. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is a very broad question. I'm sure there are some overlapping between Mustafiz sir and definitely Rezaul Karim Bhai from WP is coming up with some similar topics to talk about, and definitely government colleagues also are there. So I would briefly touch base on what are the key actions that we need to really consider. As we all know that this COVID-19 first wave and second wave, it has hit very devastatingly Bangladesh, and currently from national to sub-national, all those districts are highly stricken with this COVID-19. poverty rate is rising, income loss, sustained loss of income. So when I'm talking about this, I would like to really request to consider the complementarity and the incremental effect of the COVID-19 from first wave to second wave and then for the next 2 to 3 years. So it's not been an issue to consider right on this moment for the next 6 months, 1 year, but Bangladesh might carry the effect of COVID-19 on the livelihood and economic sectors for the next 2 to 3 years to recover these shocks. So in case of nutrition sensitive interventions, what should be the priority? I would like to really focus on the long-term plan on the public food distribution system. Government has taken a very appreciative effort on this: unconditional cash transfers, purchase from smallholder farmers, labor market programs, open market sales. So many things has been instigated from the very beginning, and still it is continuing. But the point is, the coverage and the targeting approach of this public food distribution system is an issue. So I will put some questions for the audiences here, how to really make it more functional to reach out to the most vulnerable population. And most interestingly, there is a new group of poor has been arise this from this COVID-19 impact in Bangladesh. So how to really get access to those people with this. The second one is government has taken very appreciative steps, like they have invested the short-term and long-term stimulus package. While we are considering this, the total number of investment from government is high enough, but the transfer of the money, it takes around a long time. I mean, when the support is required and when the people is getting the support, there is a lag period in between. And in that period, there is a chance of more people they are getting into poverty cycle. So the stimulus package, so far Bangladesh has initiated the targeting approach of this to be more fairer. The second one is the ag production to be supported by government. Whether we are talking about, we have really been able to consider as a independent food production in Bangladesh, but is it really that the smallholder farmers are being supported with this stimulus package? And if it is, how far it is going on? Second one is the food value chain, which is very important because of food value chain to be reinstated to offer a competitive and affordable price for the poor population. But in case of market value food price, if we consider this in the urban rural, there is a huge differences, and the price differences often put at risk all the poor population to get access to the nutritious diet day-to-day basis. I would like to request one more issues here, like the initiatives the Department of Agriculture Extension has taken in 2020. They are going to support the homestead food production across the country. But if we consider the resources, there is a very minimum resource so far invested by government on this. In most cases, the Department of Agriculture Extension, they just repurpose their resources into different programs into this homestead food production. But that should not be the case. The government should really consider how these smallholder farmers can really sustain with this stimulus package and loan for them, and to be more fairer access for them. And in the rural areas, the poverty, the way it has been defined from different districts, the disparity still prevails, and there is a risk they're putting them on a higher poverty rate again. If you consider the urban and rural disparity in Bangladesh, there is a dimensional difference from first wave and second wave, and we should really look around how far we can really reach to the urban rural poor in a very structured manner. So government has a definite plan on this, and we really appreciate, but there are a lot of things to do that. The fourth one, I would like to really request to consider the social protection. I'm sure Rizal Bhai is coming up with a lot of interesting points to consider. In Bangladesh, the social safety net programs, they have been categorically addressed in 5 clusters, like the social allowance, food security and disaster assistance, social insurance, labor and livelihood interventions, human development and social empowerment. My question is whether there is an equitable distribution of resources by government, whether food security and disaster assistance are getting higher amount of resources in the fiscal budget than the human development and social empowerment, but all are critical to really consider how this equitable distribution has been taken care of government. The coverage is still low. The exclusion and inclusion error is there. The institutional capacity, we need to really look around. We know the government and the donors. I'm sure FCDO and European Union are here. They are working very closely with government to improve the capacity for the targeting approach. And there is evident that from the June to September in 2020, the distribution of the social assistance programs in the rural areas, there are a lot of complaints that has been published in the newspapers. So how to really improve on that? And to really improve a situation, we would like to really request for a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder collaboration is important here. And the multi-sectoral programming that has been initiated by Bangladesh National Nutrition Council, how best to really support that, bringing all those 22 ministries and in a single platform and to review the program and to really look around the program success and monitor at the national level. When I talk about the nutrition specific, I'm sure there are so many things we need to really talk about. With a very limited time, I would like to really focus on the triple burden of malnutrition in Bangladesh. We have the challenge of stunting and wasting. We have micronutrient deficiency that has been clearly presented by the keynote speaker. We know there is overwhelming overweight and obesity situation in Bangladesh. Though we are on track on the World Health Assembly target 2025 and also the social development goals, but still the balance between the risks around health and nutrition during COVID-19, which comes first into government priority, that is a big question. Because when you see the investment in the health, the treatment, the curative health services during this COVID-19, it often really masks the nutrition issues across the country. And the more vulnerable population, the children, adolescents, and the women of reproductive age, that is an issue. The social behavior change communication, the way it has been devised on the National Nutrition Program, that has to be supported very, very much and to be strengthened with a very effective risk communication component as well. And we always talk about this, that the targeted approach, the last leg of a stunting reduction target in Bangladesh, this last leg is very important because it is not very equitable distribution that we have so far observed the last 5 fiscal year budget. There is improved health and nutrition budget, but if we consider the overall population, the per capita investment from government is still low. And the nutrition specific intervention is only 2%. That has been evident from the public investment review that has been done by World Bank and UNICEF in Bangladesh in 2019-2020. So we really look around what is the equitable distribution, that is an issue. And during COVID-19, there is another issue is what is the balance between the macro and micronutrient deficiency. We often talk about the micronutrient deficiency, but during this critical period, the macronutrient deficiency would be a challenging issue in the next 6 to 8 months or even year. So to be very precise, health insurance is a critical issue right at this moment for the poor people. I know this is very critical to consider as because we are still struggling with a better investment in health sector in Bangladesh, but more investment is there. And for all of those who are in the current webinar today, this is a pity that the investment in public health programs like the budget in the BNNC, NNS specifically and IPHN, considering other sectors, is really, really low. I mean, most of it should be supported with a better amount of budget in this next public fiscal year program that we should really talk about together and with a common voice, because that is very much important for institutional framework for program operation and from the digital Bangladesh, the dream we are looking forward, how best we can really support each other into that journey. I'll be stopping here because of 7 minutes. I already completed 9 minutes, but I know there are a lot of questions I put together, but wish you all the best and thank you for bringing me into this discussion. Over to you, Monica.
Thank you, Dr. Shah, for your speech and sharing few important areas like the part of incentive to response to COVID-19, especially the conditional cash transfer is the one of the most effective intervention that is now going on by different organizations, and it's really effective and fruitful. Also, you have focused on the social safety net part, the multi-sectoral collaboration area, and the triple burden of nutrition, and many more. So it would be great if I would focus on the detail, but before that, we are at the end of the first part of the panel discussion, and before going to the second part, we have a few questions in the chat box. I previously requested our panelists to respond to that in that box, considering our time and considering maintain the timeline. So I focused. I found few areas that I would request the respective panelists to respond, either here or in the chat box, because we only have 5 minutes. Because there are recommendations to the organizer to develop a call for action from each webinar series. So I would seek attention of the organizer to take a necessary action about that. There are questions about soil.
We have our panelist, Dr. Ahmed Hossain, right now before the Q&A session.
Okay, I'm sorry. So sorry for the mistake. Sorry for the mistake and confusion. Sorry, Dr. Hussain, for starting the next session before your speech. Extremely sorry for that. So by this time, we have heard from 3 of our panelists about the challenges, about the achievements regarding nutritional sector, what can be done in future, what adolescents are doing. So keeping all those in mind, do you think that academia is being engaged to this potential for nutrition research, policy, and intervention? And if so, then what would be your recommendation? We would like to know, especially from you, your recommendation for the engagement of academia in nutrition research and intervention. So over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here. The straightforward answer for the question of involvement on the nutrition research from academia is no. So at first, we do need to understand why we do need to conduct a research. The importance of any research is for effective decision making. So for the decision making, there are 3 communities have the opportunities to support scaling up the nutrition efforts. Number 1 could be the academia. Number 2 could be the research institutions like ICDRB, CIPRB. So these type of institutions. And number 3 is the policymakers. Policymakers are basically coming from the government organization or from the non-government organizations. So unfortunately, in Bangladesh, the most people from academia think research or publication to a journal is a criterion for their own promotion, not for participating in the need for research to support national advocacy, planning, or you can say program development or implementation, or you can say the monitoring and evaluation. So that's why very few people from academia are involved in research that can contribute to decision making. So number 1, one of the importance we could give in the capacity building for academia experts are very much essential, these things. While there are many academic experts is working on policy relevant issues, but that do not yet know how to influence policymakers. So no matter how well research studies are designed, they should be informed by programs on programmatic gaps. Much of the research currently being done by many experts does not fit into the current program or program needs. So the next problem is the academia people should build a networking, because they are very much behind in networking with the policymakers or with the research institutions. So that's why they are not being invited. So eventually policymakers will take notice, and if you go and do the networking, then the policymakers will take notice and recognize the contribution of the academic people to the ongoing policy discussions and in bringing evidence to the table. And also one of the gap from the policymakers sometimes take decision without reference to evidence for a number of reasons. And for example, could be the evidence is not locally available, or accessible, or they sometimes make decision from the extreme past report without referring to evidence. So that is the point where we do need to conduct a research. So, but there is no research already been done on this nutrition part, or either could be any of the public health subjects. So there is clearly a role for academics to help generate the evidence, identify existing evidence, and support decision makers to make informed policy choices. And Compounding all of this, it is now clear that the lack of coordination between the political sphere and academic and research actors. So usually government institutions responsible for nutrition planning and supply do not cooperate sufficiently with the academic and research institutions. So therefore, support for researchers and academics was not continuous or centered on national priority basis. So as the general budget of the government does not cover a specific national research program for nutrition, research institution moved toward the support of external donors to exist or function. So therefore, direction of research programs were not directed by national priorities. So another factor reducing the scope of the research could be the discrepancy between the calendars of research and policymakers. Because to support their decision, policymakers often need evidence on the spot. So, but however, if you want to conduct a research, you do need time. So, but policymakers do not want to give that time to conduct the research. So if I accumulate all these problems together, the first of all, we do need to launch an academic and research network to bring together the academics and members of the other networks in a multiple stakeholder platform, where each and every, whatever I have said about the three communities. So you have to bring these three communities in one platform. Then this network will help enable environment for evidence-informed policy information, and with support from the government in enhancing budgetary allocation, and establish a center of excellence to align actors for nutrition. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your brief yet really fruitful recommendation for our next course of action. And we believe that from your speech, we already have got some action agenda or the policy advocacy agenda for government or for the total sector to take into account the necessity or the importance of research in respective sector. So as I mentioned earlier, I mistakenly mentioned earlier, I better say that there are a series of questions in chat box. So I already wrote there, and I would like to request the respective panelists to respond to the question that the participants has already raised in the chat box. But as we have few times in hand, so we can focus on few areas such as I already mentioned, that there are recommendation for call for action from each webinar. So this is one thing. Another question was on soil health and food security relation between these two. So there are also questions on the community perceive on nutrition issue and how the public sector institution visible to the community regarding this issue. So before going to the next question and all, is any of our panelists would like to respond to all those questions regarding soil health and food security, community perception, and public institutions involvement in community regarding the nutrition issue? So if not, then considering the time, we can go to our next question. So the next question is on nutrient deficiency. The question is nutrient deficient soil will produce crops with deficiency, especially micronutrients, or polluted soil will. Is there any policy or act to address or combat the issue? So Mustafizur Rahman sir, would you like to respond to that regarding the policy and act to address the combat the issue? Am I audible? Can you hear me? The panelists and the participants?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
you are audible. Mandira, I think that due to time constraint, you can go to the next session. It is better.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Actually, time is going on fast.
Yeah.
Then we can start our session.
Okay, so we are going to start our next session, the second round of panel discussion. But before that, participants and the panelists, I would like to request to share your queries here, and the panelists to respond to their respective queries. And sorry for the background noise that has been created from my side. Sorry for that. So for the second round of panel session, we have Dr. Mohammad Abdul Halim sir first. He's the member of Bangladesh Food Safety Authority, Ministry of Food, and Professor, Department of Food Technology and Rural Industries, Bangladesh Agricultural University, Mymensingh. Sir, I'd like to request you to tell us about the policy level response from government and the policy initiatives so far taken in ensuring food security, nutrition quality of the country, given that Mustafizur Rahman sir has already mentioned about a few policies about the nutrition security. So sharing the scenario of the food safety part and food safety related policies, would you like to share something about that with us? It would be really helpful. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your nice questions. Actually, our government has taken many initiatives or policy initiatives for ensuring food safety and security and also nutrition. I want to say two things. First, food security and then food safety. The food planning monitoring unit, the Ministry of Food, is responsible for monitoring the food security situation in Bangladesh and the implementation of related policy. Activities including collecting, storing, and disseminating information for food security analysis and policy formations, and delivering evidence-based policy advise the government on issues related to food security on its own initiative or on demand by the government of Bangladesh. As the lead office on food security issue in Bangladesh, FPMU also responsible for enhancing inter-ministerial collaboration for the implementations of the national food policy and monitoring its plan of action. The agency also has a pivotal role in coordinating, monitoring, and evaluating interventions under the country investment plan. This is the food security part, but I want to explain our food safety part. You know, the new Food Safety Act 2013 came out in force on 1st February 2015, and Bangladesh Food Safety Authority was established on the 2nd February 2015 as the central regulatory agency for food safety in Bangladesh. You know, Bangladesh Food Safety Authority is a facilitating agency and apex body tasked with rendering necessary support to those organizations directly involved in updating and upgrading the food safety standards or guidelines in determining permissible limit at its highest safe level for the use of contaminants or residues, additives, and preservatives, in determining permissible limit of radiations in food, in formulating and implementing accreditation policy, in formulating procedural guidelines for accrediting food testing laboratories, and requesting the government to increase the capacity of food safety controlling agency and organization. BFS also coordinate the activities and various agencies and organizations engaged in controlling food safety, as well as those involved in activities relating to food production, import, processing, supplying, marketing, and sales, to ensure people right of access to safe food through appropriate applications of modern scientific process. As a coordinator, BFS is very much reliant on the proactive role of the safe food controlling agency and organizations. And Food Safety Authority has the future plan. You know, we have the plan to establish development the central accredited lab, healthy market, artificial ripening chamber, upgrading standards, TBC preparation and propagations, establishment call center, IT dependent food industry monitoring and surveillance system, lab networking, online education and training, and so on. And Food Safety Authority, as you know, BFS is not alone. We are consisting 9 ministries and divisions, 9 other subordinate departments and organization, 9 city corporations, 67 municipalities and municipal corporations, and 391 municipalities. That means our government has taken many steps with the other department, and we are coordinating with that department. Thank you. I want to say up to this now, but I want to add little things about the fortifications. Our keynote speaker, he explained about the biofortification. Actually, as a food technologist, I never heard about the biofortification. Every fruits and vegetables naturally contains some amount of vitamins or minerals, NDs. That means if you consider the lemon, if you eat lemon, that means it has the vitamin C. That means it is NDs of vitamin C fruits. And if you consider the zinc and this rice, but not fortified. Fortified is a artificial things or industrial matter. You can increase your level. You can add 10 ppm or 10 milligram to 100 milligram, but biofortification, you never increase your level. That is the things. It is another things. Biofortification is a vague term. Actually, fortification means it is a natural thing, artificial and industrial things. You can add, like in Bangladesh, you add vitamin A in oil. It is a fortification. You add iodine in salt. It is a fortification. You can increase your level, 10 ppm, 10 gram to 100 gram. But biofortifications, I never heard about these things. Thank you so much for inviting me this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for letting us know about FMEMU, letting us know about the Food Safety Act and the way your involvement with the other ministries, which is a big number of ministries you are involved with, and the work. So we really hope to see some positive results regarding the food safety in our country in near future. And regarding the biofortification part, we also hope that there will be as we are talking a lot about it, there will be a positive change and there will be a room for further work in biofortification area in our country. So with this, I wanted to let you know, dear participants and panelists, that our next panelist was Mr. Akhil Ranjan Tarufdar, General Manager, BSIC. And his topic was focusing on the Ministry of Industries initiative and policy part about edible oil and salt, to be specific. But due to some sudden issue, he had to leave. He all on a sudden got a high fever. So he is not able to speak today, and we hope for his speedy recovery and hope that he stay safe and well. So with this note, I want to go to our next panelist, Mr. Rizal Karim, Head of Program, World Food Program, Bangladesh. Mr. Karim, I want to know from you that Bangladesh government has undertaken a number of food-based social safety net programs that Dr. Shahid already mentioned, and he also mentioned you about it when it comes to his speech. So about this social safety net program are about to ensure food security for the vulnerable segment of the population. So what are the specific program or intervention WFP has taken so far to address nutrition security for this BOP segment of the population? Over to you, Mr. Karim. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandira. Thank you so much, Mandira, to Penjani for excellent keynote paper, and also Shahid Bhai, thank you for pointing out some of the issues, and also Mustafiz Bhai. I will not repeat those which already said, but going back to your question and just to that, let me share our experience of working with different government agencies, because WFP works both on cash-based and food-based programs. But today's question is more towards food-based safety net programs. For today's discussion, let me focus on food-based programs, particularly the food distributed through public food distribution systems. Shahid mentioned once, but again, I will go in depth. Just to let you know that I was looking at the figure for the last 2-3 years, and just to indicate that Bangladesh indeed distribute in the magnitude of 2 million metric ton of food every year. So it's depending on the year and then the circumstances, it can go up and down, but nevertheless, it's more of a 2 million metric ton of food every year. It's quite significant. And when we say food-based, I just wanted to, for the sake of clarity, I just wanted to ensure that it's not really food-based as such. It is rice-based, because even in all interventions, they call it food distributed, but primarily it is rice. And then in rare occasions, it could be wheat, but again, it is cereal rice-based food interventions. I just wanted to give a category of the safety net program, and Shahid given those broad headline on how it is categorized in the National Social Security Strategy. But there, I mean, if I look at the food-based interventions, rice-based interventions, there are 3 entry points for the government. One is they distribute quite a significant amount of food through safety net programs. One of them could be the Vulnerable Group Development Program that is implemented by Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. And under this program, more than 1 million vulnerable women households are being assisted. But then again, the other intervention is government also make food available in a subsidized price. And this is quite a significant number. Like the food friendly program is 5 million households. They receive like 30 kg rice in 5 months of during the critical time, 5 months at a very subsidized price, like a 10 taka. And government also introduced open market sale by the Ministry of Food. Primarily, even COVID, they have expanded it further. So this is also the second entry point. The third entry point for food supported interventions is government often allocate food, means rice, to respond to the emergency. So 3 areas that they intervene. One is safety net, ensuring availability of food, particularly rice, to the poor people during crisis, and also respond to emergencies. But WP, we are very pleased to see the strong commitment of the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs and also Ministry of Food to introduce fortified to address the micronutrient deficiencies. As Benjamin, you said that micronutrient deficiencies is really critical in Bangladesh, and then government Ministry of Food and Ministry of Women and Children Affairs is so keen. And at the same time, it's not only distribute fortifying rice, but also Ministry of Women and Children Affairs has included BCC and involve NGO to deliver the packages so that rice fortification is not seen to be a silver bullet. Rather, they also wanted to advocate that, yes, while you eat fortified rice, make sure that there is healthy, you also maintain a healthy diet, a good practice. WP, GAIN, NI, we are providing technical assistance to support scaling of rice fortification in Bangladesh. Just to let you know that I have indicated in my slide that Bangladesh can fortify 1 million metric ton of rice as of today. And then there are 8 private companies producing fortified rice, fortified kernels, and then more than 100 companies established blending units all over the country. If you see the map there, you could, let me see. Yeah, the map, you see that how it is more or less the Bangladesh, anywhere in Bangladesh, you could see that fortified rice could be made available. So thanks to Ministry of Food and also the investment of the private sector partners to ensure such a platform to really scaling up for rice fortification. And you know what I was trying to say, that I mean, even Bangladesh, the laboratory facilities are there. They can test the quality of the fortification, level of fortification. So Bangladesh is fully equipped to really expand their fortified, and also 1 million is not less. If you look at globally, 1 million could be 20 to 30% of the global rice fortification at this moment. So Bangladesh has created such an excellent opportunity to scale up the distribution of fortified rice, that they're indeed reaching out almost 8 million beneficiaries under different social safety net programs. It's an excellent achievement. At the same time, I mean, again, with partners, WP together with partners such as International Food Policy Research Institute, Alive and Thrive, Suchana Foundation, and others are involved in assisting the design of BCC materials, so that we not only do the advocacy for fortified rice, rather a bigger change in the society. And what we believe in, like if you look at it, the social transfer, be it food or cash, has to be accompanied by BCC to optimize the benefit. You may know about the research that was undertaken by International Food Policy Research Institute, which advocated that, I mean, cash together with BCC only reduce stunting 3 times more. Similarly, I mean, although not so much, but cash integrated with BCC, food integrated with BCC yields a greater result. So what I wanted to say that, I mean, Bangladesh has invested so much and the private sector investment is there. And if you look at the state of art now for the rice fortification, it is quite huge. And that created the basis for us to really build on and further expand the distribution of fortified rice. The challenge is, however, is that, I mean, as it goes, and also some of the companies are thinking to make fortified rice available in the commercial market. But again, the food quality control issues will be becoming more frequent, will be an issue. And we have done an assessment together with GAIN and identified areas where we could work together and improve and establish the system. Perhaps we may also have to engage with Food Safety Authority. But nevertheless, what I wanted to say that, I mean, Bangladesh is well done for scaling up rice fortification. For WFP, I just want to mention 2 things. Not only rice fortification, if you look at the school feeding program that Bangladesh government runs, they also distribute a huge quantity of fortified biscuits. It's like yearly almost 40,000 metric ton of biscuits distributed among 3 million children. Every children receives 75 grams of biscuits. During COVID, although schools are closed, but government continued to provide those biscuits at home. The project is closed in June, but they are designing another program. The other thing that we have done with the Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief, you know, when any emergency takes place, it's always they allocate rice. But again, we are trying to help them design the food package and also inclusion of fortified rice. So what I wanted to say that WFP in our work is pursuing certainly rice fortification, but at the same time, also looking at aspects that it doesn't become only distribution of fortified rice, rather also combined with other messaging through BCC and others, so that it also advocates healthier diet at the end. So that's the end, and I'm ready to answer any questions. Just to let you, those machines that you see on the corner, one of them is the blending machine. It is developed in Bangladesh with technical companies. The cost is only $8,000 US. So the cheapest one. Bangladesh also has established the rice, the fortified kernel production facilities, which is costing companies like 250,000 US. So these are some of the very innovations that Bangladesh has done with the private sector. So that's it from my side, and then I'm ready to answer questions if there is any. Over.
Thank you, Mr. Rizal Karim, for such a detailed scenario you have shared with us regarding the rice fortification and who are the organization working in the same sector, and our water achievements so far. And at the same time, I want to thank our participants as well for clarifying the biofortifying issue and explain and sharing the resources about biofortification in Bangladesh and where Bangladesh is, that they are sharing the chat box. So this will be very helpful for all of us to know more about the biofortification area in Bangladesh. With this note, I want to move to our next panelist, Mr. Eddie Barnard, Managing Director, Care Nutrition Limited. Mr. Eddie, I would like to know from you that how large is the BOP market for nutrition in Bangladesh? And the second part is, how are you tapping into this opportunity? Like, what are the further opportunities did you observe that we should be working on? So over to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just going to pull up my slide here. So for the first question, how to size the BOP nutrition market, I think that there are a number of different ways to look at this number. And I'd actually ask anyone here in the chat box to talk about some of the ways they might think about how big that opportunity is. As an organization and my expertise, we're really focused on the snack food market, which we see as really fast growing, relevant to everybody's life in the country, and also addressing the bottom of the pyramid consumers who consume lots of snacks and whose snack consumption is growing, as an opportunity for the introduction of micronutrient fortification. So that market is about $2 billion a year. But there are other markets to think about, including early life nutrition, school feeding, as well as the 16 million children that are born a year in Bangladesh, the 32 million approximately women that are pregnant or lactating every year, as well as 15 million people who are over 60 in the country. And that's the geriatric population is also often overlooked in these conversations in terms of their nutrition requirements. So I'm going to really quickly move through some of the work that we're doing in Bangladesh to treat and prevent malnutrition through delicious and affordable fortified packaged snacks. So with 180 million people and an average GDP growth rate close to 8% over the last decade, Bangladesh is among the largest and fastest growing economies in the world. As the economy grows and consumer preferences change, the snack food industry has become one of the best performing sectors, well outpacing secular GDP growth. This economic growth has translated to substantially higher incomes and a better standard of living for all Bangladeshis over the last 30 years. As you can see in the figure on the left, incomes have doubled and childhood stunting has been cut in half since 1985. However, as you can see on the right, malnutrition remains at an alarmingly high level, especially for women and children, and specifically for key micronutrients like vitamin A, B12, and D, and minerals like zinc and iodine. It's estimated that malnutrition causes half of deaths in children under 5. That's approximately 2.6 million children globally and approximately 55,000 in Bangladesh every year. Between increased healthcare costs, more time spent sick and convalescing, lower productivity and wages, and other knock-on effects, experts estimate malnutrition reduces economic output by approximately $5.6 trillion a year, or just over 6.5% of global GDP. In Bangladesh, this equates to more than $21 billion in lost economic output every year, or more than 30% of the government's 2020 budget. Furthermore, experts estimate that nutrition-focused interventions, specifically those targeting children, adolescent girls, and pregnant and lactating women, yield extremely high returns on investment of 30 to 1. At Frontier Nutrition, we've focused our attention on the creation of fortified snacks that commercialize 2 different types of well-studied tools for the treatment and prevention of malnutrition among children and women: lipid-based nutritional supplements and multi-micronutrient powders. While a transparent summary of all the existing research on the impact of LNS and MMP requires a more detailed explanation than I can provide in the short time we have together today, there is significant evidence that these tools can meaningfully improve outcomes for children and women. We've created a range of micronutrient fortified snacks under the brand Hashikushi that satisfy consumer cravings and meet their budgetary constraints while providing micronutrient content that is otherwise absent from many traditional diets and common local snack foods. We significantly outperform both locally produced and imported alternatives on a price per calorie.
Dear participants, I would like to request to mute yourself. Thank you.
Thanks. We significantly outperform both locally produced and imported alternatives on a price per calorie and price per nutrient basis. Our portfolio currently includes 35 SKUs ranging from lentil butter and chocolate to soft drink powders, noodles, and biscuits. For example, one of our most popular products is a fortified lentil butter adapted from research into SQLNS in Bangladesh that uses common local ingredients like lentils, chickpeas, and rice. Each sachet retails for 5 taka or 6 cents. Which is the most common denomination for the fastest moving snack products in the country. Each sachet contains 30% of the RDI of the 10 micronutrients most commonly absent from malnourished populations in Bangladesh. We launched commercially in January 2019 and now have distribution to more than 70,000 outlets throughout the country. In May of this year, consumers purchased more than 5.7 million units of our fortified snacks. In addition to marketing products under our own brands, we've also built partnerships with 2 other organizations to help quickly scale our impact. We've partnered with the Social Marketing Company, the market leader for more than 30 years in contraceptives, oral rehydration solution, and other over-the-counter products to develop a lentil butter that is currently rolling out across the country, across to more than 250,000 outlets under the brand Super Kid Nutrition Snacks. We've also partnered with the World Food Program to pilot 2 products, a lentil butter snack for children and adolescents, and a specially formulated LNS for pregnant and lactating women to nearly 1 million Rohingya living in the largest refugee camps in the world outside Cox's Bazar. Finally, we are currently working with research teams at Johns Hopkins, Columbia, and ICD-DRB to develop and evaluate a range of innovative formulations, packaging designs, and distribution methods to identify the best tools to help treat and prevent malnutrition at scale. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks especially to the team at Innovision for putting together this wonderful event and for the opportunity to speak with you all today. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about our work, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy, for your wonderful presentation and let us know about the intervention that you are working in, especially in Bangladesh. So as dear guests and panelists, we are kind of running out of time. So we are moving again. I'm saying that we're moving a bit faster. So now I'd like to go to Mr. Zaki Haider, Director of Innovation Empower Social Enterprise Limited, with a question that what roles can technology have in improving nutrition outcomes for the bottom of the pyramid, and how is empowering using technology to achieve the SDGs on nutrition? Mr. Zaki Haider, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Zaki Haider. I work as the Director of Innovation at Empower Social Enterprise. And thank you so much, everyone who have talked before me. Especially, I was very intrigued by the conversation that Mr. Pinjani had, and also the work that Dr. Mustafiz has highlighted. And I want to take the conversation a little bit towards technology, and as you have all the partners that have been working here, or all the partners who have talked here, they are all using different types of technology, different types of cutting edge data science to use to increase the impact of the work that they have been doing. And Empower, as a social enterprise who's working in innovation and technology, have always been partnered with all these organizations to empower them, to energize them, to enrich their effect on the ground, so that the bottom of the pyramid can be reached, and the information from the bottom of the pyramid can also be integrated into the decision making at the highest level of policy making. So there are multiple types, multiple sides of the conversation that I have been hearing in this session today. And if I take part by part, there are certain conversation regarding increasing production of nutritious food, fortification and biofortification. There are also empowering frontline nutritional health workers so that they can provide better services. And then there is personalized nutritional communication, so that we can do social behavior change. And the most of all, there is different issues of governance of different type of nutritional activity. So if we take them one by one, first of all, let's take increasing production of nutritious food. We can think about there are different ways of using technology to increase this production. First of all, there is localized custom weather-based advisory in local language for agricultural production and homestead farming. For an example, Empower is already doing this in Bangladesh and in other countries, in Nepal and in other countries, where we are providing localized information with weather-based advisory for the farmers and homestead farmers. Examples of that can be the Shufola solution that Empower has built in Bangladesh, and GeoPotato solution that we have been working with Kellogg's and IFC in Bangladesh and Nepal. We can also take examples of different kinds of technologies where we are empowering local service providers with telemedicine and farmer query for crops and livestock. So telemedicine does not only have to be for health, it can also be for crops and livestock. And for that, we are using this solution called Shurokha, where we are tracking the improvement of the livestock, and with farmer query system, we are tracking the improvement of the crops, and taking suggesting the farmers that they talk with experts through telemedicine services, so that they can actually get this the benefit of the expert help within the reach of their hand. We're also working with different type of food fortification solutions. For an example, GAIN has been working with food fortification for a long time. And what we are doing is working with GAIN to look at how food fortification can be made more relevant in Bangladeshi context. And Innovision is also partnered in that task. To ensure that the nutritional workers that are working in Bangladesh, they are the front line, they are the real warriors in the nutritional efforts in Bangladesh for government and all from the government and also different kind of nutritional improvement organizations. And with them, what we are doing is we are empowering them using the WHO mandated open SRP solution, where we are doing this group monitoring and advisory. So we can easily track the Z-score to identify SAM and MAM cases. This solution is called Grow Plus, and we are doing we are implementing this solution in Bangladesh with United Purpose and GIZ, and also internationally in Niger with CARE. So using this, we can also predict patterns in the spread of malnutrition and aggregate real-time reporting into platforms like DHIS2 for national level resource management and decision making. We can also use solutions like MTICA, which is immunization monitoring solution that we have developed with Johns Hopkins University, UNICEF, and WHO, where we can track the immunization efforts of different nutritional workers and check if a child is fell out of the immunization program and how they can be reintegrated into this system. With all these things, we have to think that how we can use this information that we are getting from these frontline workers and use that to provide personalized nutritional communication to the beneficiaries and also to the nutritional workers. So first of all, we can do capacity development of the nutritional workers using technology, which can be very cost effective. It can be gamified. It can be a gamified self-learning approach through web and mobile application. For an example, we have been doing it with a lot of partners, specifically with IPHN, for most of all, and then Bangladesh Breastfeeding Foundation. UNICEF has been a phenomenal partner. Nutrition International, World Vision, United Purpose, Alive and Thrive, all are coming together to get into the boat of these self-learning platforms where nutritional workers can improve their capacities and in a very cost-effective way. We are also working with social behavior change using localized situation-based custom advisory through SMS and voice messages. For an example, with ICCO, we have been doing it in northern Bangladesh, where people are getting customized nutritional messages based on their situation and also based on the things that the foods that they can get locally available at that time. So all these things comes together when we work with the governance of these activities, where organizations like Bangladesh National Nutrition Council, BNNC, work to coordinate the multi-sectoral approach of nutrition, where it is only possible when different line departments come together and work together. But it is very difficult to coordinate on the ground level. So what we're doing is we are helping them with technologies where they can set the target and monitor nutritional outcome in the ground level. And in this effort, we have BNNC definitely with us, and also CARE, Nutrition International, FHI 360, and UNICEF. So bringing all this together, the bottom line is that technology is by itself cannot really solve any of the problems that you guys are having. But what technology can do is increase the impact that each of these organizations are trying to achieve. And if we, and my recommendation would be on this thing, that if we can think about how we can integrate technology in a very early stage of the planning of these projects and design it in a way that technology is not a byproduct or an afterthought of these projects, but rather integral part of the designing of these solutions. Thank you so much. If you have any questions regarding technologies, you know where to reach me. So, and also please do leave a comment or question.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Zaki Hajar, for your speech, and we already know we already know more about what Empower is doing, and thanks for the policy recommendation you suggested us for for next level of action. So I would like to request, as we are kind of a little bit running behind of time, so just want to, with all of your permission, I want to skip this question answer session, as I can see the participants, also the panelists, are actively participating in the chat box. So also these questions will be reflected in the final report, I believe. So can we go for the can we go for the concluding session? So thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panelists and participants, for your valuable time, and you for making time to be here with us. We actually designed this webinar focusing on the existing challenges and opportunities to overcome those challenges, and obviously, of course, the policy recommendation, policy ask we have for the policymakers, for the government. So we believe to have we already have a series of effective recommendation from all the discussion, both from the panelists and from the chat box by the participants and also the panelists. So I hope that the final report will reflect all these ideas, and thank you everyone to be with us. So we are concluding today here, and would like to request to join the 6th webinar, which is on ICT for development. That is on most probably 5th of August, if I'm not wrong, from 3 to 4:30 p.m. And the title is Road Towards Bangladesh 2030, Readiness and Priorities for Digital Transformation. So hope to have you there too as well. And thank you again for being with us, for your valuable recommendation and time. Thank you so much. Thank you.